Hey guys, do you ever just wish you could press reset on your life? I mean, I feel like this all the time, and I actually do. So I wanted to come on and share this with you today because one of the things that I've seen a lot with girlfriends, with women in general, myself included, is the feeling that we have failed when we set these goals for our New Year's resolutions, or when we're trying to, balance everything and manage it all, when you've got your business and all the other things, same things I talk about all the time. But one of the things that I've learned is that this reset process that I've created for myself has been extremely helpful in achieving goals. And I just want to kind of focus on that today. I want to show you how I use the reset process because I'm actually in that process right now. I start it generally um, at the end of a month for whatever process I'm in, whatever part I'm in for my 161 method, which I talked about in my last podcast. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. So anyway, my mom used to have this phrase that she would say all the time. It was, get back on the horse that threw you. And basically, what that meant was, yeah, you may have failed and it didn't feel great and it probably hurt a little bit, but now get back on that horse and, get back after it, get back and practice. Do what you have to do to conquer that fear, to conquer that goal. And so, I'm not a horse girl, by the way, but it was a phrase that has stuck with me for a very long time because it was something that was like, don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid of, not getting it right the first time. It was just get back on that horse that threw you and let's go. And I think about it every time I feel like I'm failing or I feel like I'm stuck. We always have the opportunity to reset. And that mindset shift is a surefire way to attract the success in your life that you want. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about how I do that, how I get myself back on that horse, how I reset my life, how I hope that it inspires others to do the same, because I think we have to realize that, of course, life is a journey, but life also takes practice. And to all my fierce visionaries out there, welcome back to the Practice Your Perfect podcast. If you're new here, thank you so much for watching. I'm your host, Ashlee Tate, or actually, I just like to say I'm your girl, Ashlee Tate. And if you're new to my channel, I'm a brand strategist coaching change makers and small business owners to unleash their something amazing out into the world so they can design a life and business on purpose. But creating, maintaining, and managing a vision for your life and brand really does require a fierce daily practice. And that's the purpose of this podcast, right? A lot of P's in there, but that's the purpose of this podcast, right? So we can create an army of fierce visionaries that are out there and out there really changing the world. Okay. So you can leave that lasting impact. So that is my goal. Thank you guys again for being here. And on today's fifth episode, we're on 5 episodes. Woo! On today's fifth episode, we're going to talk all about the step-by-step process that I use to really reset my life. And I hope that you can also implement it into your current routine and start achieving those goals. So, okay, that was a little contracted. Okay, I'll stop. Okay, let's see. Now, as I go through this process, I want you to understand that there is a download that you can use to help you walk through this process. So you don't have to remember everything from this. I will leave that download in the link below. In the description box below, so that you can grab that as well. But this is something that I really don't even enjoy talking to business owners or people that have goals or anything without really sharing this, but I don't want to like cram it down anyone's throat. So I'm trying to kind of focus it in on the podcast place first, and then you guys can watch it at your leisure. So anyway, the first thing is you have to understand that your vision matters. So vision matters in just about everything we're doing. The vision matters in how we raise our children. The vision matters in how we run our businesses. It matters in how we create culture, how we lead. It matters in every aspect of what you do. And without that vision, what I like to call your kudos, your known ultimate destination of success, it's really difficult to start making plans, right? And starting to practice so that you can achieve those plans. So in my last video, I talked about plan the work and then work the plan. It's one thing that I think is incredibly important. I've probably been doing this since I was 17. Always had kind of some sort of plan for something. And my family used to say, hey, you don't have to plan your life. But it is something that I feel gives you a lot of control and a lot of focus. And on this channel, we talk a lot about fierce focus and why it's so important that you have this when you are trying to create a vision for your life. So if you don't know where to start, you can grab my Design Your Life and Business workbook. That's something that will help you kind of figure out how to write up your plans and how to get everything together, like look through each aspect of your life and see what's most important to you and determine your priorities and all of that. And there are 3 workbooks that you can kind of mash together, and I'll try to actually have all 3 of them in the description box to help you work through all of this. But the first one that we're going to talk about today is the reset process. And then I will also add in the Design Your Life and Business workbook if you just really aren't sure, of your goals or anything, you want to just kind of get started. That's a great place to start with the Design Your Life and Business workbook. And then I have the Practice Your Perfect workbook, which is the 161 method, which is built off of this reset process. So let's get into it right now. I'm on my 161 method, and we're going to talk about the 1 week. Okay. So 1 day, 1 week, it doesn't matter. This is how it works. The first thing I want you to know is the reason I talk about New Year's resolutions is because a lot of times we feel like that's the next time that we're going to actually press reset. Okay. But what if you could have a continuous year instead of this major reset in January when, everything has just been, you're coming off the high of the holidays. Generally, you're spending that time with your family. And now you have to take this time away from everyone to kind of go and reset and think about, what my word for the year is going to be, what my goals are going to be, like how we're going to accomplish them. And those things take a lot of deep thinking and a lot of focus and energy. And so I want you to think more from the space of, what if I create a continuous year where I plan these regular check-ins with myself, and I can do it on my own time. It doesn't affect anyone else. So each new year for me officially begins in November. And that's essentially my first reset of the year. That's the first start of my 161. Then I go into 90-day cycles from there on out. And generally it ends up in November is the first one. Then again in February, May, and August. And if you listen to my last one where I talk about the 161 method, you'll see how I do those regular check-ins. They're pretty much every 6 weeks, but you do these really large resets on your 13-week cycles. Now, if you think about this, your year is broken into 52 weeks, right? And those 52 weeks, if you break them down into 4, there are 13 weeks each. But the reason a lot of people talk about 90-day cycles or 12-week cycles is because they don't take that week to reset. And I think the reset is the most important week and most crucial week to this entire process. So let's jump into this. Let's talk about how you do it, the types of questions you should be asking yourself, why it works, and why I think it's incredible, and why it will really change your life if you start. So you can also set up your year in any way you would like and at any point that works best for you. Just to give you a little background, the reason that I chose November is because since they are in pretty much like 3-month or 13-week chunks, I chose November because it allows me before the holidays get crazy, like Thanksgiving and family and Christmas and staying up late and wrapping gifts and doing all the things. And then my birthday's in January. I run a big event for my nonprofit in January. And, in November, it's hit the ground running essentially. So I don't have a lot of time in between November, December, and January to do much planning or really thinking. And I kind of like to set myself on autopilot. So generally that reset week will start in the last week of October, first week of November. And I just take that week to not plan much and give myself time to think through this process of what I want the next year to look like, how I want it to go, maybe some quarterly goals I'd like to achieve, and kind of move from that point on. So I know it seems a little bit odd, but yeah, the when you actually sit down and write it all out, the 13 weeks and the 13 weeks out of the 52 weeks really does make a difference. So let's get started with the reset. So the reset stands for something. It means RESET. It walks you through the process, but it also, means that we're going to press reset on our lives for that period of time. Sometimes people will do this in one day, and sometimes people will do this in 1 week. So again, I explained all of that in the last podcast, so I'll be sure to link that down below as well. So let's start with R. So R, this can take about 25 minutes. It can take as long or as little as you'd like, but I would tell you that using the Pomodoro method with this piece right here is really good because it's 25 minutes, then you pause for 5, then you go for another 25 minutes. And what that allows you to do is think through some of these questions. So for R, it really means to reflect. It's a time to really look at what's been happening. If you're doing your big yearly reset, you might be looking at what's been happening over the year. What have I done over the year? This is a good time for you to bring out those past master lists and really see the progress that you've made over the entire year of your continuous year. So for me, it would be from last November to this November. What has been the progress? What are the things that have happened over that time? And the way I like to think of my master list is almost like it's a journal. And I'll talk about this in another video or another podcast actually for you guys, to give you a little bit more of an example and kind of like what I mean when I'm talking about the master list. But really, it's just a record of what's been happening and the changes and the goals and what you wanted to do and what you wanted to accomplish. So for the reflection period, right? You're going to want to take inventory of the things that worked and didn't work. Now, when this is just in a 6-week period, which is why I love doing this in 6 weeks, 6-week chunks, when this is in a 6-week period, inside of your 13-week cycle, it gives you a chance to change course, or it gives you a chance to see if something's working or if it's not, or to make adjustments along the way. And oftentimes that's why our New Year's resolutions don't work. They don't work because it's too long of a period to really reflect and see like, hey, can I make adjustments here? Do I need to pivot? What do I need to do in order to actually make whatever this goal that you had was to accomplish? So as an example, let's say that you started off your year and you were like, hey, I really want to start working out and I want to work out every single day and I'm going to be consistent and all these things. But then you realize like every single day doesn't really work for me. My kids are always interrupting me, or I can't do it with, for us Black girls, I can't do it with my hair every single day, but I can show up 3 times a week. Okay. It's hard to stop and reflect and understand why you're not able to show up every day when you already are feeling like you're failing because you're not showing up every day, every single day, which was the goal. So when you set a goal, we do feel like sometimes because we didn't accomplish the goal in the way we had originally set, that now all is lost. And with the reset process and the practice your perfect ideal, it's that you are just practicing that goal. You're not actually going to get it right the first time, and that's okay. And if you do get it right, that's perfect. Keep doing that. But it gives a little wiggle room in there for you to actually just practice it and see if it works. You're testing it, right? You're kind of doing a little experiment. And I like to call this research and development. And I talked about that in my last podcast as well. I call it research and development for yourself. You're figuring out what works, what doesn't work in a real-time situation, right? It's like doing that experiment on yourself. would this work for me? And if not, what's making it so that it doesn't work? What do I need to do to fix it? And then you go and you practice the next piece. So when you do the reflection, you're going to take a bird's eye view of why or why not you were able to or unable to accomplish whatever it is that you set out to do. But it gives you a moment to just check in with yourself. So during this time, sometimes I'll just go through photos to remind myself about how I felt and the things I was doing. How did I feel in those moments? And these are like literally just pictures. What routines worked best during that period of time for those 6 weeks? Because generally you're on a specific routine and you're trying it out. Maybe you had to tweak it here and there. For instance, there are 4 people in my home that work on the tonal. If you've ever seen that video, it's a workout system in your home. And there are 4 other people, there are 4 other people in my home. So I have to share this system with 4 people. So if I miss my time frame to work out, well, now I have to find another time frame. And so if I'm going to find another time frame, maybe I try the afternoon, which has worked before. And I've tried the afternoon and I'm like, oh, I really enjoy working out in the afternoon rather than working out in the morning. So sometimes just by something throwing you off a little bit one day, it'll give you a new perspective on, oh, actually, maybe this would work. And then maybe you try working out in the afternoon for those next 6 weeks or for the rest of that 6-week cycle. So you have a lot of room to evaluate things. And then when you come and sit down and do your actual reset process, then you are actually evaluating and reflecting on what actually worked and what didn't. So another thing that I'll use for this is looking over my master list, like I said earlier, and I'll ask myself, what did I actually accomplish during that last 6 weeks? And sometimes it's not necessarily that you've completed something, but you've made progress on something, or you figured something out about yourself, or you figured out what works best for you and your family during that time, or you figured out a new product to use in your business, or whichever, something, a new productivity tool that you want to test out and it works. And you're going to add that into your new schedule. There's lots of things that you can learn. But if we don't stop and do these consistent check-ins, then we're never going to know what's working and what's not working. We're just going to wake up one day and look back and say, I don't know what I was doing there, but I used to be very, very productive. And all of a sudden I'm not. Life happens. And in order for us to stay in control of what we're trying to do and keep that at the forefront, we really do have to remind ourselves what's working, what's not working, right? And a lot of people use like gratitude journals and things. I don't necessarily love doing those, but I do think it's good to capture some of the big moments that when we're moving through life, sometimes we forget to stop and essentially smell the roses. So write down what you're proud of, write down what you could have done better. Now, the next piece of that, which the reflection is a huge piece of this. So that's why I spent so much time on that. Reflection is going to take a while. It's going to require you to look back through, maybe you write a journal, maybe you look through your photos, maybe you've taken trips, maybe you've made progress with clients. Like it takes time for you to reflect on everything. So allow yourself that time. And that's why I talk about sometimes this takes a week, sometimes this takes one day. It just depends on how focused you are and how much time you require. The next one is to evaluate the data. So E, we talked about R, which is reflect, and E is to evaluate the data. Take a minute to really assess your current priorities and then your upcoming ones. So as an example, August, for example, is a huge period for me when I do a reset, because in August and in May, we're looking at, for those of you with school age children, we're looking at, okay, in August, kids are about to go back to school. They've been home with you. It probably messed up your schedule a little bit, or at least changed it. And you had to kind of, be nimble and move things around. When they go back to school in August, now you're going to have a little bit more structure, right? They're going to be gone from, 8 to 2 or 8, 7 to 3, whatever it is, they're going to be gone. So you'll have a little bit more control over your schedule. In May gets a little crazy, right? So for me, with my reset in May, I'm always looking like, okay, girl, you better put your tennis shoes on because here we go. We're going to be racing and running around and attending all kinds of things for that last month of school. And then we go into the June and July where I know that my schedule is going to be a lot less controlled because I'm going to have my kids home more often. We're going to be traveling. We're going to be doing a lot more things, and I'm just going to have less time. So when you're looking forward like that and you're prepared for what you need to do, it changes significantly on how you feel going into those periods. And it's not to say that you're never going to feel frazzled. It's not to say that you're going to foresee everything, but it does give you um, a moment to just look ahead a little bit, like do the best you can, right? And you are prepared for most things. So when you're in this evaluation mode, you want to look at, does your current schedule work? Is it going to continue working? Like what's coming for you, right? What's coming in your schedule or in your children's schedule or whichever? What's coming for you? So, as an example, I have never had a child play football before, but now my son is playing football. And so that's going to take up a lot of time that I would never normally spend on a Friday evening, right? So now I'm going to have to give up those Fridays, potentially some of those Thursdays, to drive him here and drive him there, to travel, to these different places where he's going to have, games, and that's going to be a little bit of an upheaval for our family. But looking forward, you know that this is coming. And so it doesn't make it as jarring when you get the schedule and you're like, oh God, I was not prepared for this. So now I can kind of shift my schedule around so that I'm not using so much of my Fridays for whatever I was using Fridays for previously. I can move things around. It just gives you a little bit more focus, right? It's just focus. It really is like a fierce focus to make sure that you can do all the things that are required of you and also do the things that mean the most to you. Let's see. So, accommodating schedules, rhythms and routines. You always want to look at like what rhythms and routines are working best for you. And when I talk about rhythms, I mean, you get into a rhythm of like, okay, I work out every morning, or, I go to the office from this time to this time and I won't be interrupted. So I have that period of time to do things. Okay. The rhythm of like, generally we go out on Thursday nights or we go out on Friday nights or whatever, that rhythm's going to change, right? Going out of town, traveling. What do I need? There's so many things. And when it comes to your business, there are lots of rhythms that are in place too. Maybe you work on specific client things on a day, or you meet with clients on a specific day, or this is your strategy planning day. There's so many things that you need to wrap your arms around. And that's why I say that your vision really does require management. That's why I call this the personal vision management system. There are so many things in your life that you have to manage and that you have to control, that you need to have a place and time that is designated for you to actually stop and look at all of these different aspects. Okay. So let's see. Okay. I do have my notes here. So if you guys see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah. So let's see here. The other thing I would say too, like during your evaluation process, is to start batching, right? Like I talk about batching a lot and it does help tremendously. Batch all the tasks together so that you can actually get into a flow and a rhythm of just doing the same thing over and over and over without stopping yourself. And then you don't have to do all this task switching. Now, this does kind of dovetail nicely into this next one. So when you start batching and you're realizing like, okay, I know what I need to get done. I know what I'm trying to do. This is when you can start setting new goals and new boundaries. Now, the reason I talk about batching and boundaries is because when you start to batch things, you need a certain amount of time for that. And you need a certain amount of mental energy that goes along with that. So that's where the boundary comes in. What amount of time do you need in order to do whatever batching is necessary. So when you write down your goal, right, one of the things that I like to do for myself is I like to ask myself, what kind of mental energy do I need? And when do you have the most mental energy? This is such an important question for most people that we don't generally answer. We know that we need to get tasks done, but we don't know when we have the highest amount of mental energy. And what I found that's been so interesting is as I talk to more people about this process, I find that there are some people who, are kind of like slow in the morning and they just need time to kind of like ease into the day. And by the afternoon, they're functioning and they're kind of getting going into the groove. And at night, they have a ton of energy and maybe they like to sleep in a little bit later. And then there are people like myself that I like to wake up pretty early in the morning. I like to get a lot of things done. And I hit a slump around, 3 o'clock. And it's like I am no longer serviceable, really. I mean, I'm not helpful anymore. So when you talk about your rhythms and your routines, like think about how those things work into your life, right? Like how does it work best for you? Don't look at what the masses are, what everyone else does. Look at what works best for you and then work off of those energies when you are creating boundaries. Let me give you an example of this because this is one of my best things that I've come up with for myself that really works. And you may have heard me say this before. If you have the most energy in the morning, which I do, then I will refrain from anything messing with that energy level by talking to people before 12. So I won't talk to people on the phone. I prefer not to before 12 o'clock because generally by 12 o'clock, I've had plenty of time to get a lot of things done. I've had time to do deep work. That gives me at least 3 to 4 hours to do a lot of deep work and a lot of deeper thinking and focused work. And then at 12 o'clock, you can call me or I'll talk to you or whatever. But I don't like to work with people before or talk to people before that because who knows how their energy is or if it's going to make me upset or I'm going to be thinking about something or it's going to shock me. I don't like to read the news. I don't like to watch YouTube. I don't like to get on Instagram. I don't like to do any of those things that could potentially suck your energy because I need every ounce before that 12 o'clock time frame. And then at 12:30, I will play. I'm happy to schedule lunches. I'm happy to call and talk and chat and do all these things. And if that time extends and I have more time and I don't have anything on my schedule, I love it, right? I can keep going. But I know I'm going to hit a wall. So you need to know when you're actually going to do that. And it makes making the boundary much easier for you. So if you have a hard time setting boundaries, think about your energy and then think about where you want to place different activities into your schedule. Because now it's not coming from a place of, I don't want to talk to people. It's just coming from a place of you're protecting your energy. So think about that. It's been an incredible game changer for me. So yeah, setting boundaries can be really tough, guys, and I get that, but you will be surprised at how much people respect boundaries when you choose to put them in place. So don't shortchange yourself. Put the boundaries there and let others figure out how they're going to work around your boundary. So if you try that out, let me know because I want to know how that goes too. Because I am really I love to hear people say, "Hey, I set a boundary and it actually worked." Remember that it's not to be rude to anyone else. It's strictly just to protect your own peace. Okay, so now's the time to add in your current goals, and start working in what you want to do. Now, in order to look at your goals, one of the things I will say is, I know there's a saying out there that says, what you do in the present will dictate your future. But I like to flip that around on its head. And I like to say that I always like to work backwards from the end goal to see what needs to be done in the present, right? So if I have a big goal of, let's say, being my most fit self, well, what do I have to do today? In this next 90 days, what can I do to make it so that I can get closer to that goal? And that really is, again, using your kudos, right? And that ultimate vision. Even though it can and likely will change somewhat over time, as you gain more information, whatever. This is the whole idea of thinking big. When you work backwards like that from, I want to get there, so let me do this, you will always look back and you're going to see major, major progress. And that is the key. We want to see progress, right? But because you're practicing, even if you're failing while you're practicing, you're still moving forward. Even if you're just like inching slowly ahead, you're still moving forward. So I want you to think about that, remember that, and focus mostly on that piece of practicing and achieving your goal. Okay, achieving that vision. Okay, so we set new goals, right? So we did the reflection, we did the evaluation, we set new goals, and now we're on our second E. What that means is to examine your past baseline and establish a new baseline. So if 6 weeks ago we were practicing, whatever you were practicing, maybe you were practicing, posting every week or every day or whatever. Okay. So if you were practicing every single day or every single week, let's just say you were practicing and now you want to move to every single day, you're going to look back at, okay, I did a good job practicing every week. I can move forward to practicing every day, or I can add another day in there, or I'm going to start trying to add in something else, whatever it is, whatever the habit, whatever it is. It could be your weight, it could be your habit, it could be, taking care of yourself, it could be showing up for friends, whatever it is. Establish whatever that baseline is, the new baseline, by looking at your past baseline. Now, if you're just starting out and this is going to be your first reset ever, then you're going to only establish a new baseline because you don't really know what your last baseline is. But after you've been doing this for a while, you'll start to see a trend. You'll look back at your master list and you'll see your baselines that you started with, that you ended with, and that you started with. And you can always see how much progress you've made. So then it allows you to set goals for the next 6 weeks, right? To say, okay, if I were able to do 4 posts, in my 6 weeks or whatever, maybe this time I can do 6. Like you can always, I don't know how to explain it, but it's always just it really is research and development like that. I have no other way to think about it. It really is research and development, but for yourself, learning what works, learning what's not working, learning where the roadblocks are, learning what works, like what makes you happy, what makes you thrive, what doesn't. For a long time, I was waking up and I was watching the news every morning on the treadmill. And I thought, I'm so on top of things. Like I'm getting all this information. This is great. But what I realized when I was looking over time is that I was getting less and less done because it was bringing my energy down. And so I would be concerned about whatever I read, or I would be thinking about, how sad these things are. And so it allows you to kind of research yourself, essentially, if that's something that you can actually do. But that is how I look at this process. So you can call it a research and reset, right? Okay. So yeah. So your baselines, like say you're writing a book and you want to write, 100 pages a day. Not that I recommend that, but let's just say you want to write 100 pages a day or 100 pages a week, whatever the case. When you go to look back at that baseline and you weren't doing that, okay, well, now you know that you still want to write that, but you're going to look back at what was holding me back from actually getting those things done. Let's change some things around and try that. We're going to practice that. And that's the big thing. You're in control, like you're leading the way. Okay. So let's get into that. Now we've done all the steps essentially, except the last, and the last one is T, and T stands for taking action. Now, what does taking action actually mean? It doesn't mean I'm going to go do all these things immediately, but what it does mean is none of this does any good for you if it doesn't make it onto your calendar. So I think your calendar is one of the most powerful weapons that you do have against procrastination, against motivation, against, losing your way, all of those things. Your calendar, I know it's so rudimentary, it's such a simple tool, but your calendar really is the last part of this process that makes you conscious about determining the time frames from the last step and placing them onto your calendar so that you can see what you need to be working on a daily basis. So, um, when I'm doing my reset process and I'm adding these things onto my calendar, sometimes they will be things like, okay, I have a meeting in 3 months, or okay, I want to schedule, every day at 9 a.m. I'm going to do X, right? There's a saying that says, I don't find motivation. Motivation finds me every day at 9 a.m. And one of my friends actually pointed that out to me. I can't remember who actually says it, but the point is that yes, like every day, if you have that on your calendar, it's less likely that you're going to forget about it and you're going to remember why you put it there because of your ultimate goal. So I know that was very long-winded, and I'm sorry, you guys, I always am. But if you're someone who, maybe isn't like a daily journaler or something like myself, I don't journal every day, but I do use a 6-week journal, and I just write in my master list and I go back and I check, okay, what happened 6 weeks ago? Or if I'm making notes along the way, just to make a note to myself, okay, I'll use that and I'll say, this is what happened over these last 6 weeks. And it allows you to really see your progress in action. That's what, the practice your perfect idea is all about. You can see your progress in action because you're practicing and you're not adding it's not a lot of pressure. It's more of, I hate to say it again, guys, I got to say it, but it's more of research. So that's where I want you to think of. This system is really designed to encourage fierce focus and discipline so you can achieve your goals on autopilot. So you don't have to think about this again until the next 6 weeks cycle is complete. So that's it. That's all I have for you today. Reflect, evaluate, set new goals, examine, and take action. And I will see you guys next week. Let me know if you have any questions or if you try this out. I will have all of the links down in the description box. Thank you guys again so much for watching Fierce Visionaries. I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys. Now get out there and unleash something amazing. Bye.